Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It is your Capes Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our two new friends, Roland and Jörg from Back to Fairtaylia. Did I get it right that time?
Yeah,
let's go. I was so sweaty. Here we are. We are 1 for 1, and we are going strong. How are you guys doing? Welcome. You guys are from across the pond, so some different time zones here. It is the afternoon for you, so good afternoon, guys.
Good morning, Cody. Good morning. Thanks for having us.
So how are you guys doing? Welcome to the stream. Let's start. Let's break right into it. How did you guys get into creating comics? Like, where did it all start?
Well, it was a very long way. You go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we started writing together when we met in college, but we didn't write comic books. We actually wrote our very first movie script, which was called A Cheap Piece of Shit. And for whatever reason, it was never made. I don't know how. I don't have any idea. And but then we both started working very long time ago in the past century, actually, at a German daytime drama, daily soap. And we were writing episodes for that, and still doing this also. And then we started writing.
Going.
Right, and then we also wrote for tons of other German television shows, procedurals, action, adventure, drama, family drama, you name it. We wrote it.
Wow,
tons of movies. And we always wanted to, I mean, we've always been big comic book fans. You might know, this is easier to see. There's a whole bunch right behind me, but there's the tip of the iceberg. And we always wanted to write a comic book. And for some reason, we always wanted to write like an American comic book. You know, obviously we have lots of comics here in Europe. French and Belgian comics are very big and very awesome. I grew up on Tintin, for example, and Asterix, you know, very famous over here. But for some reason, we always had a really soft spot for the American comic book. So at some point, we started thinking about creating one. And I started creating one with actually almost the same creative team that is now on Back to Fairtaylia. And it was called Maximiners. And it had this idea that what would happen if all children in the world at the same moment in time would gain superpowers.
Oh, that would be chaotic.
A disaster. So we produced actually the first issue, but for some reason nobody wanted to publish it so far. But we still wanted to get it going. And then I got to Jörg, and I figured let's do something together. Maybe Jörg, you can tell the origin of Back to Fairtaylia, because it also goes way back when.
Way back. I mean, one of the reasons we want to do this is we can't really do genre on German TV. I mean, it's gotten better now with all the streaming shows and dark on Netflix, but even, dark on Netflix, it's always very German, very dark. So I think it was really almost 20 years ago, we had this very old rundown theme park in our part of the woods, and it was actually very lo-fi. It was these diorama-like displays of fairy tale stories with this intercom thing where a tinny distorted voice would tell you the story. The animatronics were, very, very lo-fi. We thought, okay, what about doing a Buffy the Vampire Slayer in a fairy tale park? And what if they all come alive, and what happens then? We tried to pitch it as a TV show. Nobody wanted to do it. So we tried to turn this into a feature script with Red Riding Hood, finding out that she is the actual Red Riding Hood. Nobody wanted to do it. And then we turned it into an American script. No, not really. No
Guess
takers.
what? No takers.
Why wasn't Hollywood waiting for us? I don't know. And then finally we thought, why not go with a comic book? We wanted to do one anyway, so perfect. And we rewrote the basic story extensively. Not only one protagonist, but an entire ensemble, 5 people. And that's how it all started.
So what's the biggest difference between like a European comic and an American comic?
Well, length, I would say. Usually in Europe, many comic books come out like 64 pages, like more like a soft cover graphic novel.
Yeah, that actually is quite a difference. It's about triple the length.
Like all the Tintin or Asterix or these kind of comics, or Möbius comics, they all are like soft cover or sometimes hardcover albums, we call them over here. And usually they have one self-contained story. They may have a little bit of serialization going on, but some an Asterix or Tintin or Blake and Mortimer, all these kind of, they have one adventure, and then maybe the next adventure features one recurring character, but you can basically read them by themselves. You don't really need to read all of them.
Actually, a lot of these French comic books, all the Asterixes and they were sometimes collected in these magazines where you would only have these 6 to 8 pages per, and there was a cliffhanger, and you had, I don't know, 4 to 6 series in one issue, and then you had to wait for a month, and they would basically break up the albums into tiny story parts, and you get the end of it after a long time.
And even the American comics, when we were younger, they didn't really come out as like soft, how do you call them? Just the regular issues.
The graphic novel, like the books.
No, I mean just like the regular.
The floppies.
Heft. The floppies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I'm German, so I.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
The floppies. They usually collected them also either in like larger sized albums or like even small books, you know. So only, I would say, in the last 20 years have the American companies also put out their floppies as floppies, but also of course as collected trade paperbacks.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I was curious because when you were explaining it, you know, I've talked to several people that are European, and I never, I guess, asked that question because I never realized there was an actual difference. And I mean, having it be 3 times the size, that seems in itself like so much more content that you have to pump out. Now, having pitched this to so many different like TV shows and trying to get this produced as a TV show, like what were some of the biggest differences, like having it go from a TV script to a comic script?
Budget. We could do whatever we wanted. That's the thing. We can do whatever we want. So that's, I think, one main difference. Just to go with, you know, with the story I've taken us, we don't have to think about, you know, production or anything. And I think that was very free, just to be able to do whatever we wanted with the story, where we wanted to go. And that was amazing, actually, because, you know, we don't have to care about budget or anything. Yeah,
when I had the... Oh, go ahead.
But also, I think it was a really big learning experience as well, because even though we've written, you know, a lot of TV scripts or movie scripts, it's a whole different structure, and the way you pace the story. I mean, especially if you wanted to do it like we did, like, you know, consecutive floppies, not one big graphic novel at once, but really come out with 6 issues as for volume 1, and really need to figure out, like, how do we get to a cliffhanger every 24 pages? How do we, you know, present the story in 6 issues? Because that's not much, actually. That's what we discovered. It's a whole different way of thinking, and it took us a long time to wrap our heads around it. And I'm not sure if we correct it, but, you know, that's where we got at the moment.
And especially stupid us that we actually racked up the number of characters we had. We started out the feature thing with the 1 main character, and we wanted to do it as an ensemble. But now you have to serve 5 main characters and a lot of supporting stuff. And it's like, okay, how do we tell that actually in a very, very concise format? It's not that easy, actually. It was a learning curve.
So, I mean, how do you do that? How do you introduce a cast of characters with different personalities as opposed to just having 1 protagonist?
Yeah, we do step by step, Jörg.
Yeah, you have to. Well, even the first issue, I mean, we start with the main character, one of the main characters, and then we introduce them on the go. I mean, what we wanted to do is basically introduce them during action, and not to say, okay, this is an exposition dump and you learn a flashback, but do it through the action, and we hope we achieve that. But that's for the readers to decide. But we think it worked quite well, but it was a lot of stuff. I mean, especially our letterer, he really had to tell us, okay, guys, where's enough stuff for the images? You have a lot of words there. And so we had to say, okay, what is essential? What do you need? What can you tell visually about the characters? What do you don't have to spell out? But it was a lot of back and forth, but that was also the great thing about it, because it was fun to come up with, okay, you know, boil it down to the essentials and still be able to say, who are these people? Why should we care about them?
So I had
and I also think that, sorry, you go ahead.
No, you can.
Yeah, I think it's also very important, I think, to mention that the first 6 issues of Back to Fairtaylia that are coming out now with the first issue now on Kickstarter is that it's very fast paced. It's basically the first act of a bit larger story. I'm kind of always joking. It's a bit like when in Endgame, you know, they think they killed Thanos, or basically they killed Thanos. That's where basically our first 6 issues end. And we learn quite a lot about the characters, but I think that you only get a glimpse, and the real character work in terms of the arcs and what's going to happen and how they change, that's really actually happening in the later volume. We have to at least say that at the moment, because the first 6 issues are really fast-paced action, and it's really fun. That's what we think. We hope everybody does too. But after that, it gets a little more into the characters, but that's how the story presented it to us.
No, absolutely. I had the opportunity to read issue 1. Thank you guys for providing me that. Have you ever heard of Conker's Bad Fur Day? It's a Nintendo 64 game.
What was it called again?
Conker's Bad Fur Day.
No.
So the premise of it is an N64. Nintendo is very notorious about being family friendly, and I bring that up with a reason. So Conker's Bad Fur Day has a very cute squirrel on it. You would never expect the type of game it is. Once you play it, it's very raunchy. They're killing people. It's very, like, it gives you that illusion that it's a kid's game, and then very soon you find out that it's not. And when I read this, I had that same exact impression. I'm going into this. I'm like, okay, this is like an all ages story, very nice. And then I'm seeing a squirrel get bitten in half by a skeleton. He walks in on his parents. I was like, what is going on right now? Like, and there were so many awesome Easter eggs. This felt like just such a throwback to, like, me as a child. I loved just how many different, like, nods to different things I saw in this. What was the experience like for you guys co-creating this, like writing your creative process together? How did that look like for you guys?
Well, it's basically, it started out with being, you know, what we used to. We usually know how to break story, and then one goes and writes the first outline of something, and then it turns into a script. Of course, again, the learning experience of writing a comic book script is different, but co-creating stuff, co-writing, I mean, that's something that we've been used to. So that wasn't actually a huge challenge, but again, doing it as a comic book, that was the challenge of it.
I mean, we always write together, basically. We two are part of a writing team called Mondo 23, and there's some other people in it. And these people kind of always, you know, write together for the shows or the movies we do, or the comedy bits, or, you know, comic books in the same. So when we started at the Daytime Drama, that's basically a team. You never really write alone there, unless.
Basically,
yeah, it's basically a writer's room. So we were totally used to that, and also the good thing about it, I think, is you also learn to interact with the other creatives. Like in our day work case, it's like the directors and the actors and the camera people and everybody, you know, who's actually shooting the episode or the movie. And in this case, those people are our penciler, our colorist, our letterer, you know. So we always know that, you know, these people really bring something which we cannot bring, because they are steeped into their specific work. So we always look for people who can, you know, we will give them the freedom. We'll just say, you know, this is our script, now do what you think is good. And then, you know, we don't want to give them too many instructions, because then you kind of restrict the other artists too much. So, and I think in our case, I hope you agree, our penciler, PR Daedalus, he's amazing, and, and he's actually responsible for a lot of the Easter eggs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought the designs were just phenomenal. Like the paneling, the art. I loved the splash pages. Like everything about this book just was phenomenal. Like I said, it did such a good job of like tricking me in like the first couple of pages. I'm like, okay, like all ages. Then I'm like quickly like, no, this is something that's geared towards me. Like I love this. Like it's awesome. So
I think in the beginning, you know, when we started with the story that Jörg just told, how it became, it was more like a serious, like a fairy tale action adventure show. But with all those fairy tale fantasy related media coming out of the past 20 years, at some point we thought, you know, we can't just do it like everybody does. We kind of have to do almost a little bit, at least, the parody version of it. So just this, and I think the core idea in the beginning was like, what would happen if some of the kids from Narnia or from Harry Potter or from all these shows where children find some secret doorway into another realm, what would happen if they tell their parents about it? They would obviously put him into a mental hospital, because this cannot be true. And this is basically the idea where it started from. And then, of course, it developed into what it ended up to be.
Yeah, I really loved how the poor, like, park janitor, he got pinned for a pretty hefty crime, too. I was like, my man, no. He was just trying to be a good guy.
The world is such a shitty place sometimes. I mean,
so give us a little bit of a synopsis, a concept of what this story is about. When readers read this for the first time, what can they expect?
Well, I can go ahead. Yeah, of course. It's mainly, I mean, the basic premise of the story, Roland just told you. It's about 5 kids who find a portal to Fairtaylia in an old theme park. They come back. One of them tells his parents about it. They are getting committed sometimes. They are having lots of trouble growing up. When they grow up, they think it was just a shared delusion. None of this was actually real. But then they find out, well, all of it might have been real actually, and they have to go back. It's basically about, I mean, our generation, different generations, but we grew up through a lot of, you know, all the stuff we love and still love, even if we're older. It's like Arrested Development, but what we really would like to be is go back to that and find it again. So we have 5 jaded characters who are in their 30s now, who think, well, that's all far behind us, but then they have to go back. And how does that look? I mean, they have to interact again, they have to be friends again. And I think if it's satirical, it's a parody, but it's also, I think, there's hopefully a lot of fun and heart in it and lots of action. That's the main premise. 5 jaded 30-somethings have to go back to Fairtaylia, to the fairy tale country, the land they visited as kids, like the Narnia kids.
And maybe we can talk a little bit about those 5 people, because they all kind of got a little bit successful. I mean, one of the characters, he became a child psychologist, and he is really on the end of, you know, too much fantasy is not really good for children. Children need to be confronted with real life as soon as possible.
Yeah, I love how brutal he was.
He's very brutal.
Like Santa's not, you know, Easter. Yeah, I gotta be careful because my kid's in the other room. But the way he was acting in the audience, I was like, oh my god, like he's just, shoo.
Yeah. And so obviously, you know, when he realizes that what he thought was his fantasy life is actually real, that's a big thing for him. Then we have Lee Carter, who became a novel writer, a children's novels writer, and she, of course, also thinks it's all being fantasy, but she writes all these novels which actually depict their real life adventures from way back, although obviously through her eyes, which, you know, makes her the hero. And you know, it's a little different than what the others in the group will later remember. Well, who else do we have, Jörg?
Well, we also have Anna. She's now an actress. She is basically, she's now in a way kind of a very jaded, she's a Disney princess in a way, but she hates it. She hates the entire industry. She hates her director. She hates everyone. She hates the way she's being perceived. And then we have Johnny, who went into big pharma. He also thinks maybe it was just a delusion. Maybe we were on drugs. Maybe the old caretaker in the old theme park gave us drugs. Who knows?
Yeah.
And, well, the final one, I think he is actually still too young to do his job, but he turned out to become the president of the United States. So that's basically the 5 of them.
So when I read this, I got a lot of different vibes, and I'd like to talk about inspirations too. Have you guys have heard of It by Stephen King?
Yes, of course.
It kind of gave me that vibe as well. Kind of how they went through it, they repressed it, and then they were called back to it. So was there any like inspiration from Stephen King at all, or like what kind of like inspired you guys to create this?
We are big Stephen King fans, obviously. I vividly remember reading it when I was like, I don't know, 13 maybe, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books of him. And so obviously, I mean, I guess probably these days it's almost impossible not to be inspired by Stephen King in a way, because he has such an amazing output, and also a lot of other things. I mean, even Stranger Things is heavily inspired by him, which also basically inspired us maybe a little bit. So I don't think we really sat down and said it's a bit like it, but actually after we finished it, I know that I've mentioned to some people, imagine like it meets Enchanted, and I don't know, like, some fairy tale, Buffy maybe a little bit. So I don't know what else. I mean, obviously we love those Disney movies. I mean, Enchanted is actually a really fantastic movie. I don't know if you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it kind of makes a little bit fun also of this Disney world, like chirping little critters and princes, and they're singing songs all the time, and we love this. I mean, it's not like we are looking down on it. I'm really a big fan of Disney movies, especially Disney princesses. But obviously, there's a lot of comedy to mine from this. So that these are some of the inspirations. Anything else, Jörg? What I forgot or?
I think these are the main inspirations, but I think everything from the 80s, it's a bit like the Goonies in a way. So the Goonies growing up and going back to Fairtaylia. So this is basically, that's what we grew up with, all the 80s stuff, all the Amblin Spielberg movies. And I think that's the main inspirations. But yes, a lot of Disney stuff, which again, we love, but I think you can do a lot of stuff with it. And I think if you go to Fairtaylia, you will find out there is a lot of weird shit happening there.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's funny you said you read that when you were 13. My mom was a huge Stephen King's fan, so she had a bookshelf filled with like the hardbacks, with like the blood lettering. Like she was huge, and I remember reading it when I was like 13, like before the age you're supposed to, and just being like, oh my god, this is so. He turns into a spider. Like this is terrifying. Like. Oh man, but enough of that. Let's actually, since we kind of built things up, let's take a look at this Kickstarter together and kind of go through it and see what you guys are campaigning right now. For anyone that is watching, be sure to check this out with us, and most importantly, be sure to back. If you can't back, share it on your social media platforms. Retweeting is free, and word of mouth is essential to getting the word out. So we are looking at Back to Fairtaylia issue number 1. Back to Fairtaylia is anything but a kid's book. What happens when happily ever after it doesn't happen? So your guys' goal was 585, and you're currently at 1,153. Congratulations on funding with 9 days to go. That is awesome, guys. Congratulations again. Project we love too.
Thank you to all our backers. I mean, this is amazing. We're very happy about it, obviously, and I hope we don't disappoint you with the finished product.
That is so awesome too. The project we love. Is this a video, like a little animated trailer?
Yes.
So
it's actually 3 minutes long. I don't know if you want to play the whole thing, and it also will feature us, unfortunately, for 30 seconds.
I don't know. I think on the top of the page might be the other one. There are 2 videos, I think. Aren't there 2? I don't know.
So yeah, we could actually watch this if I mean, I don't mind watching it for the full 3 minutes, but if you want, we could watch it for a minute if it is long.
It's actually, we like it. It's actually just let me say it's a trailer for the whole series. So some of the stuff you'll see is not going to be in issue 1, but it's going to happen in the consecutive issues.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Hi everyone, I'm Jörg.
I'm Roland.
We're
two TV writers from Germany, and we shouldn't be on camera. But here we are, and there's a very good reason.
Yes, we wrote a comic book called Back to Fairtaylia. And this is the Kickstarter for issue 1.
That was one of my favorite parts too. The troll nuggets. That was gruesome. That looked like Cinderella with the glass slipper and the eye. Holy crap. Oh my god. So yeah, this does get a lot more from the first issue. A lot more graphic, it looks like.
Yes.
So please give us a kickstart into the troll balls and get ready for madness. Lean back, rev up the chainsaw, and come with us back to Fairtaylia. Ta-da!
That was so awesome. I loved your guys' energy. That was so awesome. So did you guys have to travel to meet each other?
Yeah, I went to Roland. I had to visit family, and so on my way back, we did this. It was after a very long day, so it was like, what are we doing even?
Yeah, there's a reason why we're usually behind the camera.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not the people who should be in front of it, but in this case, you know, at least you have to say hi to everyone and introduce it.
So right here we are looking at the story. Once upon a time, 5 childhood friends found a magical door to Fairtaylia, an enchanted realm full of wizardry and wonder. 20 years later, they are a bunch of self-absorbed adults who don't believe in fairy tales anymore, until a talking squirrel and a chainsaw-wielding fairy show up on their doorsteps. So I really like the chainsaw too. Is this like a nod to Evil Dead?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the story of Dreamcabelle, I think, should be told because it's really interesting and because it gives you an insight on how actually creativity works sometimes. Because she popped up in a background image that PR made. I think it wasn't maybe even this cover, and we didn't have a feature yet in the beginning because, you know, we were talking about it and he was penciling a few things, and then he came up with that design, and we immediately thought this is such an awesome character, and so we made her basically the sidekick to Skippy, who's the squirrel that says, "I want you to save Fairtaylia," and of course she will get a big role in the whole series. She's certainly one of our favorites as well, and yes, of course, Evil Dead, the whole, you know, I mean, Texas Chainsaw, all these kind of the chainsaw.
You know,
is
and
like
I want to say, I was gonna say he gave me Nick Fury vibes, but I almost with you guys, I want to say Escape from New York. Who's the guy from Escape from New York?
Yeah, John. Yeah, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. Yes, yes. Yes, that I almost get that vibe from this guy because he seems like such a badass.
He is a badass. He's a total badass, and obviously it's a nod to Nick Fury and to Snake Plissken because, I mean, as soon as you introduce a patch, you know, you will keep it. But also he's a bit kind of like a Nick Fury character. So yes, you're totally right with that one.
All right, so let's go over some of these preview pages. We did have a couple of these scrolling on the side, but let's take a look at them too. So this is I would say this is like the main protagonist, right? Because this is the one we follow from the start to the end of issue 1. Or is it going to be different with issue like 2?
It's going to be more of an ensemble, but we go into the story with Tommy. That's right, yeah.
Yes.
So this is
but
Tommy.
Again, yeah, the others will also be very important. Yeah.
So this is Tommy running home basically to spill the beans. And right here, I love this scene too. He runs in and his parents are just like, oh, hey. And
he doesn't even notice.
Busy, but tell us what you want.
Yeah, and right here, all the little nods to like the Star Wars, the Harry Potter. We have a lightsaber right here. So I love this room setup. And even right here too at the doctor's, I thought the nod to like right here, like the Ritalin poster, like almost how like they always want to put children on like medication to like calm them out. Was there any? Was that the inspiration, or was this just kind of a little?
No, totally. Because I mean, two things. A lot of the small details, a lot of the Easter eggs really come from PR, because he's such a stickler for detail. He just loves to fill every panel with some little things that you sometimes even only notice after reading the second or third time, and which of course we love. And the Ritalin thing in this case obviously was like a nod, like, okay, what's the thing you do with a kid that, you know, acts out? You'll put him on drugs, which sometimes actually is a good thing, but a lot of the times probably not a good idea.
Yeah,
maybe there's other reasons why kids act out, and maybe you should look at that. So yeah, obviously there was one of those.
Yeah, I always like with that type of thing, you know, to each their own, but I always felt like you should try to extinguish all your options first before going that route. You know what I mean? Like, don't go that route right off the rip, you know, because there's other options.
I agree.
And then we get a good look right here of just how Fairtaylia actually is. You know, it's gorgeous. It's mythical. There's so many different creatures. It's a party, so much fun, and it all got ruined just because he had to open his mouth to his mom and dad.
Yeah, little shit.
You're drinking songs. You always like songs, lots of songs.
Oh yeah, right here. I love the song too. Is this so did you guys make this up, or is this based off of anything?
Came up with that song.
Yeah, I came up. We like to write stupid songs for this. I mean, honestly, we'd like to make this as a musical animated show. That would be perfect.
Yeah, there is actually 2 musical numbers in future issues, and I don't know if there's many comic books that feature a musical number in it. So we were very proud of pulling that off. And Jörg is a big musical fan. I like
it looks amazing.
So you have an actual musical like planned for a future issue? Like, how does that work?
We have some production numbers. We have some production numbers in there, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. It's I think it was at issue 4. I think.
It's still going back to Disney musicals, of course, and I think we need to have something like that in there. Of course, you know, our way, the Fairtaylia way, which, you know, means it's going to be completely crazy and weird, but I think
what we try to do is really use the choreography from a musical, and PR, I think, in a genius way, managed to put it in a comic book, basically a silent comic book that you as a reader read. You don't hear any music, you don't hear any singing, but I personally think he did a fantastic job. I mean, you guys have to be the judge at some point, but it was so much fun. And as Jörg said, our dream for this would be, you know, to like a South Park the musical, for example, you know, like have an animated musical movie or show, because musical is such a big part of any kind of a Disney Fairtaylia thing, you know. So we figured that would be awesome. Jörg is a really great writer for
you enchanted the R-rated version in a way.
No, I got you. Right. We have J. Michael Miller over on YouTube saying these sample pages do a great job of selling you on the story. I agree too. These I think like what you guys were explaining earlier, these were like prime example of everything that happened right here, because then even this is him kind of growing up. I almost got a Dr. Phil vibe from this guy too.
Obviously, Dr. Phil. Sure. Yeah. But once again, really, we need to shout out our creative team as much as we can, because it's not obviously PR, as you can see, did a fantastic job penciling and inking the whole series. And for the first 2 issues, we had Liz Buenaventura from Manila, from the Philippines, who also did an amazing job. Here she is. She, as you can see, she did a lot of her. She just published They Fell from the Sky. It's her first. I'm not sure if it's the first, but it's her latest self-written a comic book, so she's also a great writer, and unfortunately, because of COVID, that's the only reason why we had to switch to Esther Salguero, who's also amazing, from Spain. She she took over issue 3, but because of COVID in the Philippines was so horrible, and the lockdown measures were so intense, and Liz has a family, and she just couldn't do it all because she had to take care of her son for all the time. You know, they couldn't go to school. They couldn't even leave the house. I mean, it was insane.
Wow.
So we were sorry. We were very happy to get Ista. She's amazing as well. As you can see, some of the stuff in the trailer we just saw was colored by her, and everything from issue 3 is colored by her. She did a great job as well. So we're very happy about that. And then of course there's Mike Stock, who did the letters. Also fantastic, and as Jörg just said, he really had a tough job at some point because, you know, we tend to become very wordy, and you know, comic book, it's really a balance to not have too many words, so he always reined us in a little bit. And finally, I think also shout out to Timo Les-Möllmann. He designed the logo, and that's also a very big part, obviously, of the book.
No, that is so cool. I love how all your creative team is from different parts of the world too. A very diverse
cast. Mike
cast.
Is from England. Mike is from England. PR is from Poland. As I said, Liz is in the Philippines. Ista is in Spain. We are in Germany. Timo is also in Germany. So it was. I mean, that's a great thing about today's technology. You know, you don't even have to be in the same room. You can just create something like this. And be in completely different parts of the planet.
And then we have the 2 stars of the show too right here. Let's not forget to shout you guys out. So co-written more than 130 episodes for some of Germany's highest rated crime and action dramas. That is remarkable, guys. That's a lot. Like, how long are these episodes?
That's more Roland, yeah.
Well, no, it's, I mean, you two, it's a regular 45-minute episodes.
Wow.
I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, and we started in last century. So, I mean, you know, and so we've been really a long time at it. And also, again, as we said earlier, we write in a team, so there's other writers involved as well. But yeah, I mean, we've been doing this. That's our day job. That's what we're doing every day for 25 years now. And comic book writing is basically I'm always trying, you know, saying it's basically our motorbike. You know, our midlife crisis. Other people buy a motorbike or get into an affair, and we just figured we'll just, you know, spend our money on a comic book.
So let's take a look at some of the stretch goals too. So stretch goal 1, 50 backers. All physical backers will receive a free sticker pack. At stretch goal 2,
already unlocked. Actually, it's unlocked yesterday. Yep, that's the next stretch goal is a postcard, which is also looking great. And then there is maybe more. We have a whole line of stretch goals lined up, but we are not 100% sure what we're gonna offer that. Again, for us also, this is all new. I've never ever run a Kickstarter campaign. I mean, of course, it's not us running them by themselves. We have really great help, of course, by our publisher, Invader Comics. And with Mike Perkins, Kevin Miller, and Keith Foster, they always, you know, having our back. But of course, you know, it's a big effort to do this, and it's really interesting and new to us. So, yeah, working on it.
And then these tiers right here, these are going to be the same tiers on the side too, right here. Cool.
Yeah, I think there's also a few. They have a few early bird things that are already gone. I think go through them, maybe the digital comic, the physical comic. We have one with the black and white cover.
So it looks like,
of course,
so it looks like for $4, we're gonna be able to get the digital copy of Back to Fairtaylia issue 1. For $7, you're gonna get the physical, and then 15 is a really interesting tier. So for $15, you're gonna get the comic and a map. So a physical copy of Back to Fairtaylia, a map, and a metal bookplate. Can you tell us a little bit more about the map and the metal bookplate?
Yeah, the metal bookplate, obviously, it's basically what it says. It's a metal bookplate, but the map is a map of Fairtaylia, which also, as you can see, is just a representation. It's not the final image. We're still working on that one. I mean, we have all six issues already done. They're finished. We just need some money for the production and everything. And of course, we at some point like to at least make some of the money back that we already spent, because we paid all the artists. You know, nobody did anything for free except Jörg and I. So that was very important for us, you know, to pay everyone. But generally everything is done, and we're doing Kickstarters for some of the production stuff. But the map is not really done yet, but we are working on that one. It's it's a map of Fairtaylia with all the.
Which will come later. It's like the raid on the Death Star planning, and this is what this depicts in a way.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like for 22, you get the variant cover. So you get the physical copy of the variant cover plus a map in the metal bookplate. So I think that's really cool. For just for $7 more, you're going to get the variant cover included with that. So 79, this is where we jump up. You're going to get everything listed before plus a 5x7 head sketch of your choice. So any character from Fairtaylia?
Yes, anyone, and that's PR will do this just for you.
Cool. We had J. Michael Miller over on YouTube saying just back. Jay, thank you so much. That is awesome. I always love when we get back live on the show. That is so awesome. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
So for 129 tier full sketch, so you're going to get everything listed above plus a 6x9 full sketch of your choice. And then we have, or go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says. It's the full figure also of any character of your choice. Could also be, obviously, can be Skippy, can be Drinkabell, anybody, doesn't have to be one of the human characters.
No, I got you. And then risk of challenges, of course, is you guys can't control the pandemic. You can't control paper shortages. So anything that's outside of your control, there's nothing you really can do about that. So
no, as we said, the comic book is finished. It's ready to print. It's more like, it's a comet hitting planet Earth next week, then we might get in trouble with giving everything to everybody. But all in all, we should be able to fulfill all the things.
So this is the Kickstarter in its entirety, correct? Did we miss anything?
Yes. Cool. No, that's all of it.
So let's go ahead. We're going to close out and go back to our main window. J. Michael, thank you once again for that. We really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, awesome.
So
it's really great. I mean, the thing is, we are. It's funny because on the one hand, we've been like established writers over here in Germany, so that's a good way to be. But on the other hand, we are totally newcomers on the comic book scene in America. Nobody has ever heard of us. Nobody has ever seen us, and there is obviously also not it's a small publisher. It's not a big PR budget, and so we are very happy about every little thing, every tweet that gets out. Maybe he reaches one person who backs us, because we really believe in this project, and we would love to get it all out to everybody as soon as possible.
No, that is so awesome. And having the chance to read issue 1, I thought you guys did a phenomenal job. I loved it. For anyone that is watching right now, here is the link to the Kickstarter. Now, Jörg and Roland, I want to ask you guys, for anyone that's watching that's on the fence about backing, what would you like to say to them directly to kind of help push them over that bump?
It's a fantastic comic book, really. I mean, we put all our blood and soul into it. We worked for years. I mean, also again with the COVID, obviously it took way longer as we anticipated, but we really worked very hard on it, and it's our love project. We love it so much, and I'm sure obviously if you look at the art and it's not your style, or if you don't like fantasy worlds or something, I mean, obviously this might not be for you. But if you're like if you want to go to other things, like if you like It, or if you like Stranger Things, or if you like Disney movies, or if you like Enchanted, or if you like South Park, if you like irreverent humor, in like, even, I mean, Rick and Morty is way more crazy than we are, way more crazy, but there's tiny little bit of these that it's not taking itself too seriously, but it's also not just making fun of everything. So we hope to find this balance. So at least maybe check out issue 1, and then decide for yourself. Jörg, anything else?
I mean, you have, honestly, on the final action you can one, but I think we also have really great characters, and the art is amazing. I think our team, I mean, they surprise us every single page, and there's so many little details in it, and I think to reread it again and again, I mean, I think really, well, we love it, of course. I mean, why wouldn't we? But I really think it's really fun, and lots of stuff in it. It's like a huge summer action blockbuster, I think. And we are going to do that, and we could finally do this in the form of a comic book. So, and we hope that you guys would have fun too.
No, that is so awesome.
One of the pitches we always had in mind was a little bit like what if Fairtaylia meets Superbad or something? I think that was one of the very first things. So we would try to, at least with the humor side, but make it a little more heartfelt too, because all of our characters really have a lot to go through especially in the coming volumes, because one of the themes is also like, what are you really, who are you really, and who did you become because of maybe outside influences, and who might you be if you go back to your original personality, which kind of got lost by growing up, for example.
I think in a way it's also a very weird high school or college reunion comedy. It's basically 5 people who met as children, who went apart and moved away, and now they have to reconvene. They hate each other in a way. Now they have to save the world in a way while hating each other and being. It's like a very, very weird high school reunion when you know after that you don't wake up the next day drunk, but you wake up basically in a fairy tale country, and a talking squirrel and a chainsaw wielding fairy say, "Well, now you go save the world, you idiots."
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
And one thing maybe I want to say, if you guys follow us on our social media, there will be some images from future issues also to take a look at, just to give you kind of an idea what visually we'll see in the future. Because as great as issue 1 is, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, he outdid himself issue by issue. He got more and more amazing, and it was sometimes I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I would really want to frame every single page sometimes because it's so great. So we'll publish some of those like as a teaser for the next issues.
Yeah, it really felt like issue 1 was just the tip of the iceberg from what I seen, and then in that trailer there was a lot that wasn't in issue 1, and it just looks like it just becomes so much more intense, and I can't wait to see where you guys go. With that being said, though, you said you had 6 issues planned. Is that the full run? Is there anything else after that?
No, it's we kind of have maybe 3 volumes. I mean, it's a trilogy. Everything is a trilogy. I mean, come on, you know, you have to have a trilogy. So we have 6 issues. This is volume 1, and those 6 issues, they tell basically act 1 of the bigger story.
Okay.
And they are finished and done. And you know, we figured we want to at least finish those and then see, is there an audience for this? Is anybody else as excited about it as we are, or you know, is nobody caring about it? Then we don't really need to bother making more. But if we figure out, oh, you know what, actually there are people who want to read it, then we will do 2 more volumes with 6 issues each. So in all, it's going to be 18 issues. And then obviously, I mean, with everything, you know, you can go on in different directions, prequels, sequels, anything is possible. It's such a big world.
Yeah. I mean, there is an ending. We have a huge action showdown. There is an ending. But of course, as you said, we started out on daytime drama. So we end on a cliffhanger because that's how we were trained. And then we have a cliffhanger, but there is also a huge ending. There is an action showdown and there's lots of stuff going on. And it's going to be crazy, but yeah, you need to have a cliffhanger, of course.
Oh, that is so awesome. I feel like I need to ask too. You know, I wasn't going to because it seems like such a stereotypical question to ask. But what is Fairtaylia? Like, what is the inspiration behind the name itself? Because I've never seen that word before. Is that something you guys created yourselves?
We went through different iterations of the name. You know, some kind of super generic fairy tale names. I think Lysadia was one. But in the end, we decided you need to know from the title what it's about. And we started out with Grimm's fairy tales. So if you think about fairy tales, I think using something that sounds like, yeah, okay, I get it. It sounds extremely generic on the one hand, in a fun way. Of course, you know, in this theme park, Fairtaylia, but you know, it's about fairy tales. But of course, when we go into Fairtaylia, it's like, you know, all bets are off. It's not just Grimm's fairy tales, it's everything you can think of, every single fantasy world, sci-fi world. I mean, it's all in there. Some of the we came up with, some stuff PR came up with, and yeah, there's lots of stuff. But that's where the name came from. We wanted to say, okay, from the get-go, if you see the title, you know, yes, it's Fairtaylia. That's where, you know, fairy tales live.
No, that is interesting. I just had to ask because it seems like such a unique. I mean, did you guys create? Was that an actual word, or did you guys make that up?
Well, we made it up because we basically took fairy tale and I think at one point it was called Fairtaylia, but then that didn't sound right, and so we just you know what, make it Fairtaylia. That sounds vaguely like a fairy tale, and probably people will get it. And I mean, we checked, obviously, as you have to do these days on Google, if somebody else came up with it, and we couldn't really find anything. So we figured we're probably safe, unless somebody pops up from somewhere and says, there was this 5,000 years ago. I mean, these days it's very difficult to, you know. You
just got to send the fairy creatures after them. And at that case, hush them up.
Yeah, drink a bell, go. Take the chainsaw.
Hey, so.
I mean, it's usually come from some kind of fairy tale country that has a specific name. but sometimes you can't even remember them anymore. And it's like, okay, where was Cinderella kind of, I don't know. I think I would know maybe Frozen, it's Arendelle, I don't know, but find something that is very, okay, you hear Fairtaylia, you know, yeah, okay, I get it, it's fairy tales.
Yeah. So with that being said, it is time for us to begin wrapping things up. But before we go, I always, with this show, it is a show that's dedicated to promoting you as writers and creators and your book. But it's also a nice learning tool for anyone that's new that might be watching. Sometimes they pick up, tips and tricks here and there. So with that being said, I think it's really important for me to ask and take advantage of the fact that you guys have, been involved with so many different episodes, 130. That is such a crazy amount. So with that being said, for anyone that's out there struggling to kind of keep their content fresh, to kind of keep coming up with new ideas, what is the trick to that? What is your guys' secrets? Because there has to be something you're doing to be able to come up with so many different episodes. So I guess what is your biggest advice for keeping your content fresh and not letting it get stale?
Wow, good question. I mean, I think the first thing is practice. Writing every day, it's always, I think that's the one thing, because when you write every day, I'm sure everybody who's worked on anything creative will realize that at some point when you're in the flow, something else gives you the ideas. I have no idea where it's coming from, but it very often happens, not just to me, but everybody in the team, that we sit together, we brainstorm, and some idea pops into someone's head, and then, oh, we all are excited about it. So I think that only happens when you kind of get into this groove of basically doing something every day, and then obviously the whole practice of turning this idea, which thankfully something put into your head needs to be fleshed out into a full script, which is actually the hard work, which takes weeks and months sometimes, and a lot of rewrites, and of course there's always other people involved. We always have discussions with directors and producers and network people, so everybody has their ideas, so you always need to be on your toes about that too. But just doing it every day, I guess, I don't know, it's really hard. It's like this question, where do your ideas come from, Jörg?
I think for us, working as a team, that was, I think, the main thing. Because if you come up with stories, usually you sit in your room, you look by yourself, and you're racking your head, and you don't know where's my next idea coming from. Working as a team was always huge. Maybe you run with an idea someone else had, and then it develops into something bigger, it snowballs. And I think, especially with Roland and I, we think we always say we're two very different people having really same taste. So we like the same stuff, but sometimes come at it from different angles. And that works. And usually if somebody kind of blanks for a while and said, I have no idea how to get out of this, the other comes up with something. So I think for us, working as a team, as a writing team, that was always the main thing.
Yeah, it would be nice to have that person to bounce that idea off of.
If you can find a writing partner, and I mean, we are so lucky that we just don't have one writing partner. I mean, Jörg and I, we wrote this comic book, but as I said before, there's a few others, and we've been writing together 25 years, and it's fantastic, and you don't have that often. But if you have the chance to find a writing partner, I think that's really amazing, because it's so funny. It's not just like you have an idea and they have an idea, but sometimes I remember a lot of times I'm stuck. I'm writing something and I just can't get it. I mean, if on a script maybe where we already have developed it together, but I have a question, I can't really wrap my head around it. I call some of the others, and just by talking to them, I even might come up with the solution myself. But I only came up with it because I was talking to that person. Otherwise I would have sit there for like hours and no idea would have popped in my mind. And obviously a lot of times the solution comes from the other person on the other end of the line. But as I said, it's this alchemy of working together. It's not just like my idea, your idea. It's like combining it, then something is created. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's
magic.
It's really crazy how sometimes just talking and like letting the words just escape your mouth, and you're like, oh, well, I just figured it out. Like it's insane how that works. Right. That happens to me all the time. I get that. Jörg, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I totally agree. That's basically what we did. I mean, we found I don't know how we found each other. We found each other on the daytime drama, and it kind of clicked. And we met each other there. It's still basically the same core team for all those years. And again, we're very different people, but we like the same stuff, and that's how we attack things, and it's fun. It's still fun to come up with stuff, and again, we don't know how it works, but it works.
That's so awesome. Well, with that being said, guys, it is time for us to wrap things up. It is a beautiful Sunday over here. Afternoon for me, evening for you guys. I love the time zones are such a crazy thing. For anyone that is watching, if you haven't backed, here's the link. Check it out. And if you don't have the means to back, retweeting it, liking it, and sharing it on your social media is 100% free. Word of mouth is so essential and crucial to this type of thing. So even just spreading the word to your friends and family, they might be interested and they might end up picking up a copy as well. So with that being said, be sure to share it. Roland, Jörg, thank you guys so much for coming on here, breaking down Back to Fairtaylia. It was such an awesome read. I cannot wait to get my hands on a physical too. When's issue 2 expected to drop? Any idea when that's going to drop?
It's the thing is these days, you know, with the whole comic book industry basically in shambles after COVID, especially the small publishers, I'm sure your audience will know, is kind of relying a little bit on the Kickstarter campaigns as well, at least as to cover a little bit of the upfront cost. So we'll most likely will continue with Kickstarters for all the subsequent issues, but we don't want to, you know, take money from people before we have delivered the first perk. So it's most likely going to be a 3-month gap between or 2-month gap between each Kickstarter. So we would have of course loved to give you a monthly comic book, but in the times like these, it's probably not realistic. So if you follow us on some of our social media channels, obviously if you back us, you will be notified as soon as issue 2 comes out. We should probably also mention that we are also listed in the current issue of Previews, so you will also be able to get a copy, I think September 28th in your local comic book store. Probably only if you have pre-ordered it. I don't think they will all stock it. It's especially with a new series, but you can order it on Previews as well.
That's really cool.
We'll love that, and I was very proud of it, I have to say. I mean, after reading, I remember when the first previews came out, and before that it was Advanced Comics, and just going through this catalog every single month and getting my stuff, and now finally seeing a project I've been involved in. To me personally, that was a big deal. Even though it was just like a little blurb.
No, that is a big deal. That's cool.
It awesome.
That's your way of looking like you made it. You know what I mean? Like you're in the catalog you were buying from. That's awesome. No, with that being said, guys, it is time for us to wrap up. I hope you all have an awesome Sunday, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.